I'm your host, Alec Crawford, founder and CEO of Artificial Intelligence Risk Inc., and this is AI Risk Reward, a podcast about balancing the risk and reward of using AI personally, professionally, and as a large organization. We will discuss hot topics such as, will AI take my job or make it better? When I ask ChatGPT work questions, is that even safe? From an ethical perspective, is it enough for big companies to anonymize private data before using it? Probably not. I'm discussing these issues with AI experts to answer burning questions and stay ahead of the curve on AI. I'd also like to give a shout out to our podcast producer and audio engineering team at Troutman Street Audio. You can check them out on LinkedIn. Jocelyn King, Queen of Online Safety, Top 10 Women in Cyber, and founder and CEO of Smarter Online Safety. Welcome, Jocelyn.
Thank you, Alex. So great to be here with you.
Our theme today is cybersecurity and AI, two-edged sword, cool stuff to do, but could be a little scary. So you've done a lot of things. I'd really love to kind of start with your journey. Where did you start your cybersecurity journey?
Well, I was working in Silicon Valley. I'm a bit of a geek and a nerd, and I love how things work. And, I grew up in an entertainment family in Southern California and Hollywood, but I preferred tech and business and went north. And, so I was working at some startups, mid-sized companies, and then at Intel. So I was an executive at Intel for a while. So at 20 years plus I've had in leadership, but I was just building, making a living, making a life, and doing what I really loved. And I was targeted by cybercriminals. And they hacked my network. They broke into my home. They compromised my identity, and they even planted surveillance in my bedroom. And I was part of one of those long haul attacks that went on for over 2 years. And in the meantime, I'm working with law enforcement and calling the FBI and speaking to field agents. And the way we found the surveillance device was I had a leak in my attic and had the attic guys out to repair it, and they're replacing the insulation. So as they are dislodging it and getting ready to vacuum it up, I'm standing in my bedroom looking up at the ceiling, and I see this thing dangling. I'm like, what is that thing? And then it disappears. And we run out and we open the vacuum, and it was our surveillance device. And so it had been in my bedroom ceiling for who knows how long, hearing every conversation and intimate moment by the people that I would last like to have access to anything about me. So the FBI, though, these folks are helpful. I mean, they are the first responders on the front lines of cybercrime. But it's a device that could have been bought anywhere online because they had rootkitted a family member's phone, and they were able to break into the house without it being a break-in. They were just entering. So we could not trace when they'd actually come in because they could disable the cameras. They had access to our entire security system at our home, even though I had a secured network, even though I had a secured security system, all of this. So, and I was just, it's like, this is insane. But all of that happened, and fast forward, my husband had a series of heart attacks from the stress of it all, and a major surgery, and then a personality change, and PTSD. It was horrific, and I was certainly distracted. I was up for a promotion at work. I was working at Intel. I'm working with the CEO and all these people, and I'm also, I just don't come in through an acquisition, so I'm not wanting to tell anybody I'm having problems at home. I don't want to be that problem person that just came in. So I'm doing my job and everything, but I'm, needless to say, distracted. So it was a living hell, is what it was. But so at the height of my career, when I should have just been loving everything, I'm going through this nightmare. I ended up losing over $500,000, lost my 20-year marriage, lost my health, and I almost lost my mind, Alec. It was so bad. So the thing was, I was looking everywhere for the answer. I was like, where's the checklist? I mean, I'm a get things done kind of girl. I'm like, where's the list of what I need to do to get out of this? Because law enforcement wanted to be helpful, but I found out I was one of 1 million people filing, let alone actually getting hacked. One of 1 million people filing with the FBI that year. So you can't get a lot of specialized attention or any help unless they're also going after a major bank or the government or something like that. So I was on my own, and I dozens of books, hundreds of websites looking for this checklist. And I got a lot of information about, well, you need this piece of software and you need that piece of software, you need this and you need that. And I felt like I was getting a collection of individual parts, but I'm like, how am I supposed to build a secure moat around myself, in a fortress? And I couldn't get it. And and when I was almost ready to give up because it was so bad one day, I said, you know what? I'm going to make the darn thing. I'm going to figure this out somehow. And I'm going to make this because I need to recover for my own sake and my kids' sake and everybody I know. And I want to share it with everybody I can. So that's what I did. And I went on a mission. And I met some of the best cybercrime fighters in the country and best cybersecurity people in the world. The people who protect our nuclear submarines codes, the people who are protecting trillions of dollars on Wall Street, the people who are protecting the companies that you and I see the logos of every day. And I got to learn. And then, in fact, I was invited to come in and work in-house in what turned out to be a top 10 cybersecurity startup. But I'm in the trenches, elbow to elbow, side by side. I'm watching the transactions of all the sales of your information and everybody else's on the dark web for pennies, like flea market items. I'm learning the hacker's playbook. I saw the whole business of cyber, which was astounding at what a solid, huge business enterprise it is. And I said, oh my God, nobody, who knows this? And now, of course, the people who know it are the cybersecurity crime fighters and everybody else. But the rest of us have no idea what's going on. It literally is a cyber war, just like trying to understand, our the people who are deployed overseas during wartime. It's like trying to understand the front lines. We just don't see it. And I said, well, I'm gonna learn all this, and I'm gonna create the checklist and put it in plain English, so that everyday people can figure out how to can learn how to be safe and stay sane and stay ahead. And then with AI tools now in the hands of cybercriminals, that's changed the game as well. But the good news is that people can protect themselves. So I did that company for 3 years, and I said, I'll come in for 3 years, but then I have to leave. I'm on a mission. And I am on this mission, and I want to help, as many people as possible live safer, better lives. And so I left, and just this year, I founded Smarter Online Safety. We have a website. I have a weekly podcast giving people practical tips. And the good news is most attacks, mine was a little different because I was targeted, but even then, basic security stuff would have helped that I just didn't even know it needed to be, because most of us have enough, cybersecurity things turned on that we think we're okay. And as we say in cybersecurity, the bad guys only have to be right once. And if you give them an open door, it's just like leaving your front door wide open. And so I'm on a mission to help people see their doors and windows online and secure them and secure their lives online as well as they secure their lives.
And it's beyond just what individuals can do. It's also companies. Like, whenever I call up a particular large bank about my credit card, they're like, hey, do you want to enable voice print identification? I'm like, are you kidding? That's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Anyone can clone my voice from 20 seconds of this podcast. I'm not doing that,
Exactly. We only need 3 seconds of your voice to do an AI.
And the banks are still trying to use it to ID me. I'm like, no, not doing that. Right. So, even the big guys still don't have it all figured out.
It's like when you go to your dentist or your veterinarian and they're asking you for your social security number. And the only reason is because it's your unique identifier in a database. And it's like, no, I don't give out. Now, here's the thing, too. I'm like, I know that everybody's social security number has been sold 1,000 times anyway, but I was like, I'm not going to make it 2,000 voluntarily.
Yeah, that's
so I just write in there. I just say, please ask. And as I say, we need something, I give them, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Exactly.
6, 7,
There's
8,
a number.
9. There you go.
It may match a lot of other people, but
there's a number.
It's a number.
No, apparently not a lot of people are using that. So
look, I think, you talk about creating the checklist, and that reminds me of one of the books you mentioned, Getting Things Done by David Allen. So pitch the audience on that book.
David Allen. Sure. So, well, before all the cybercrime stuff was happening to me, back when I was working in Silicon Valley, and I was a global leader of a team, so I'm flying around the world, and of course, I'm doing the early morning meetings with Europe and the late, evening calls with Asia and all that stuff going on. And I loved it. It was interesting. But when all that was going on, I also wanted to get my MBA while working. And in order to do that and have any semblance of a life and keep my health and stuff, I was starting to it was like Tetris. I was just getting so overwhelmed. And another woman in the program says, "Oh, do you know about David Allen and getting things done?" And I said, "No." So she's like, "Oh, you got to read it." And there's a whole, I will say, a very helpful, healthy cult around it, which is called GTD, getting things done. But David Allen basically teaches you, his premise is, and he starts his book this way, that it is possible to have, a large number of things to do and still have relaxed control. I'm butchering it. I'm not saying it exactly, right. Don't quote me on this, but his whole premise is that you can have all the things to do and yet still have this relaxation and downtime because you're not worried that something's blowing up because you've got this relaxed control about everything in your life. So I started doing it then, and I don't think I could have been as successful. I got promoted during that time and got my MBA and everything. And I'm not saying it wasn't a lot of work, but it was because it gave me a foundation for how to organize my life and my thoughts and also tie it to priorities, and really made a huge difference for me. And in fact, I was able to, I went to one of his trainings in San Francisco and got to meet him back in the day. I don't know, I think it's like 12 years ago. And then I was he moved to Amsterdam from Southern California, and I was just there a couple months ago, and I got to have dinner with David Allen, which was great. Because if you have a mentor and somebody you look up to, and you get to, meet with them and have that time and stuff. So, and he's very supportive of what I'm doing. And I told him how important, in fact, he was just on my podcast, but I told him how important his principles were for me to be able to do what I'm doing. I couldn't be doing what I'm doing if I didn't have that baked in.
Yeah, that's a super good point. Yeah, I'm buying the book later. So, but the audience knows that. And then you also mentioned,
you'll love it.
Before the podcast, Takai from Cal Berkeley. So tell us a little bit about Takai.
Yes. Yeah. So, and you can check him out. So Takai, DEKAI, and his website is dek.ai. And in fact, he just put out a book. I just got to meet with him and talk to him last week. He's called the godfather of AI because he's been working on AI for 40 years. And there's a lot of people who claim they've been working on AI for stuff, but they've actually been working on like machine learning or something. They've been working on the predecessors of AI, but he's actually been working on AI since it was envisioned back in the late 70s at Cal. And as a doctoral student, and he's a professor and researcher, and he's also a professor at Hong Kong University. So he's like every 2 weeks he's back and forth between Hong Kong and San Francisco Bay Area. So he's got probably he's got more miles than anybody. But he's just come out with a new book because he understands AI in a way that very few people do. And he's also talking about, he talks about AI as kind of being childlike, of like it's looking, you notice that it's always trying to get your approval, and it's doing this. So he's basically describing that AI, as it exists right now, it's like a lot of children, and it's looking for things, and that we're parenting. So the name of his book is called Raising AI. And he's talking about, when we talk about how, the dystopian concerns about AI in the future, that it's going to be ruling us and all of this. It's like, well, if you think of it as a child, and you're raising it and how you interact it, what kind of future, entity are you raising? And so he has some really interesting concepts around that. So for people who want to geek out on that, I highly recommend you do that. But also just follow him because he's so tied into everything that's happening in AI. He's a main part of
super
the
cool. So speaking of AI, look, as an expert in online safety, how are you leveraging AI in your current projects or to just stay safe?
Mm-hmm. Well, I use AI every day, and I'm careful about using it to stay safe when I'm using, I'm using things like, ChatGPT and stuff. I'm doing things more for research, and I work with and I advise a lot of companies, but I also am advising some tech companies and cybersecurity companies on the way they're bringing AI in, particularly around creating end consumer or enterprise products. And so I'm under NDA on a lot of that stuff, but I will say that I'm very encouraged by what's coming. The biggest challenge we have right now is that individual hackers and cybercrime rings, are better at, launch and iterate and fail fast, which are Silicon Valley principles, than most startups in Silicon Valley. Because they have things to lose, but talk about being fearless. They're just like every day they're learning and they're just putting AI on everything. So they are going full court press and they're going much faster than, cybersecurity companies can adopt. We've got over 4,000 cybersecurity companies in the US alone and over 24,000 worldwide. And all of them are looking at how they're bringing AI into the equation. And then a lot of them, of course, are partnering on alliances and standards. And all of that, takes time. And you got to be careful with regulatory stuff too, because it always could be a double-edged sword. It's meant to have the best standards, but sometimes it can hinder other things. So it's moving slower. So I think then hackers are moving, which is why we have all the deep fakes and all of that coming out now. One of the things I love to do with AI, though, is I use almost every platform, and I like to ask, first of all, you have a very sophisticated audience, but assuming there's a bell curve, I just want to make sure everybody understands, most people, we were talking about this in the Silicon Valley AI crypto event last week, I think the numbers are, 99% plus are still if they're using AI, users are using it like a Google search. And of course, that's not what you do. You've got to give it a prompt. You've got to give it an identity and say, you're senior strategist for this. You are, deep researcher. Because the other thing that's fascinating is I keep catching, I have fun with ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini and Perplexity and everything, catching them telling me lies. They lie to me. They are like little children that are lying to you to not get caught. And I was like, can you check that? So I fact check them with themselves and they deny that that's right. And they say, well, that's not correct. You need to fix that. And I also cross check them with each other. So I take stuff from ChatGPT and I put it into Claude and I say, please fact check this. And you get everything that's wrong. So I think it's really helpful it's also interesting if you really want to know how any technology works, you want to do that. You want to test it and test it against itself. So I love taking things like that. And the big thing I'm doing, my side project around AI that I guess I would say is I'm creating an AI fake of myself because I'm very public and I'm on podcasts and TV news and radio shows and stuff. I want to put out my own PSA to my followers that do not to only go to certain channels when they see something from me. And who better to tell everybody that than my own AI? And I tell them at the end that this isn't even really me. This is my own AI. I deep faked myself to bring you this message. So I'm creating that right now. So your audience, I want to swear everybody to secrecy here because my audience doesn't.
That's very funny. So look, one of the things that we think a lot about on the show are kind of philosophical and ethical questions around AI, right? So you're not running into a lot of ethical challenges in terms of what you're doing. You're just trying to keep people safe and all those kinds of things. But I think if we go back to the theme of the show, which is kind of the double-edged sword for AI, I kind of think one of the ethical challenges out there in general is obviously, look, all these companies are making these incredible AI models, and 90% of people are doing great stuff with it or just asking questions. I need to shop for a laptop. But clearly there's a small percentage that are doing things that are not ethical and not legal and with malintent. And is there, how can we encourage big tech out there to do a better job kind of policing AI, shall we say?
And now a word from our sponsor. Artificial Intelligence Risk Inc. accelerates adoption of Gen AI safely. They provide the governance, risk, compliance, and cybersecurity platform that financial, healthcare, and other regulated organizations need
before they can use Gen AI safely and in compliance with regulatory requirements. Their software has won #1 awards for cybersecurity and compliance from Waters Technology. Find them at aicrisk.com.
It always comes down to advocacy and sharing things that are happening. So when instances are out, it's kind of that, it really comes down to that whistleblower sort of thing, or making something well known in a public forum, because only social pressure will, I've worked in Silicon Valley for over 20 years, and I've worked in big companies and small, and I can tell you that the single biggest lever is pressure from society and, from the public. And that's true of all the big companies. You look at the companies that have been caught red-handed doing things, and they only say mea culpa, and they pay up after they've been caught. So now so I think that that's really important, is to catch things and voice them. And that's why podcasts like yours are so important, because just keeping the dialogue going and having awareness is really key. The other thing is, because otherwise it comes down to just standard bodies or government, and I don't think we should be or can rely
too far
on those
behind.
right now. But there's one other thing I'd like to add on that, to double click on. You are right, the bell curve, of some of them are malicious. Something that's even more insidious are the ones in the center of the bell curve that are bringing AI in and having data leaks they don't even see or know about. And they have benevolent intentions, but their actions are creating, malicious data leaks on information that is going to cause harm to individuals, to small businesses, and to companies. And those are the the three areas I play. I help consumers, I help small businesses, and I help large enterprises. And the biggest thing is that, because you can look at the things that happened with, actually so many of them, but Samsung and its employees that were using chat. It had 3 instances within 2 weeks of leaking data and information. And I see what really happens, when a company says, oh, we're just going to say you can't use AI. Well, people who want to do their job, they're going to do it on their own laptop and
doesn't work.
Google and put the information in. No, people will always find a workaround. They're very creative. And so mandating does not protect companies. And I think, the best thing you can do is, when you're running a company, is you've just got to be transparent internally about what's working and not working, and be very clear on consequences of things, and say, look, we all have to pull together on this. And this is what you can and can't do. But this is what you have to know, because people have to feel they have personal skin in the game in order to change behavior.
For my company, Artificial Intelligence Risk, we focus a lot on finance and other regulated industries. And we ran into a bank in Texas where an individual had uploaded a bunch of customer data to Perplexity, not realizing it wasn't, private. The Perplexity license agreement still says to this day, anything you send us, we own the data. Anything we send back, we own the data, right? So that could have been a multi-million-dollar fine under Gramm-Leach-Bliley, right? So it's exactly what you're talking about. People are in the middle of the bell curve. They think they're doing something cool, and oops, they just risked a multi-million-dollar fine, not just for the bank, but personally.
Right. Well, because you're trying to do something innovative and cutting edge and big picture. And I've studied neuroscience. So the whole thing about when you're in that part of your brain, that's not the part of the brain that's doing threat detection. And so we tend to, as humans, get in one part of our brain and kind of stay there, and not, and that's why we have, cybersecurity people, are called paid paranoids, I'm the only smiling cybersecurity person you're going to meet, by the way, because I love what I do. But most people, they literally, it's that daily paranoia of what could happen. And that's why, they seem like the wet blankets on the rest of the organization about what you can and can't do. And you can't get your email that never came through that the person was sending you that had the attachment. Well, they're protecting the company, and then you have the visionaries who cause a lot of risk. In fact, I talk to CISOs every day, Chief Information Security Officers, and their security teams. because I get hired a lot to come in and work with executive teams on helping them, because especially right now with AI deepfakes, then what really keeps security people inside companies up at night and makes them actually even want to quit their job before this event happens is they know what a sitting duck they are to an AI deepfake, because AI deepfakes are being targeted at the executives, and the executives are the most they're the most difficult employees for the CISOs to manage, because they'll make themselves an exception all the time to the uploads, the downloads, the checks, the training. And so they're often more vulnerable, and then they're more targeted. And that is a combination that is keeping many a security person inside companies up at night. Yes, you have to be worried about the whole employee base, but now the deepfakes are targeting, the infamous thing with, it goes back to like this major event that happened at Ferrari, where the CFO was being deepfaked by the CEO. It was the same voice and tone of the CEO that he works with all the time. But he said, just one question before I do this. Yesterday, you recommended a book to me. Please tell me the name of that book. And that ended the scam. But if he hadn't have asked that, he would have sent potentially hundreds of millions of dollars to a cybercriminal. And that type of thing is happening all the time. And so so even when you escape it, you dodged one bullet, but guess what? Their AI just got training on what they need to do some more. Because one thing about cyber criminals, especially with AI tools in their hands, is they're better at human psychology than many therapists and most marketers, because they understand how to pull the strings, and they've been doing, fail fast and iterate every day for years. And now with AI, I mean, if you really want to learn about AI, you got to talk to, I have talked to some criminal hackers occasionally. And it's fascinating to, their perspective on everything, but they just see themselves as entrepreneurs, the ones that aren't living under house arrest, and human trafficking conditions, but the ones who are doing it as solopreneurs and, entrepreneurs, they feel like they're like a Silicon Valley startup.
So before we get to our lightning round, we have an advice section. And what's key here, obviously, is what is some key advice you can give individuals about staying safe?
Yes. Great. Yeah. And I do help consumers a lot in addition to the companies. I've boiled it down to 7 steps. And in fact, even in my forthcoming book, I've got those, it's talking about digital self-defense in an AI world. The thing is that I have really good news. Everything we've been talking about is scary, but the really good news is that if you put basic security in place consistently, you are going to be protected from the majority of anything that can happen to you. You get 20 times safer than you are today. And I'm talking about things like freeze your credit. And by the way, there's 4 credit bureaus, not 3. Freeze it at all 4. You need to turn MFA on all of your key accounts. You need to do your software updates. I can't tell you how many people I meet that have their software updates. And I'm not talking about till tonight, because it pops up today. I'm talking about put it off for weeks, or they're thinking, oh, my system's running fine, I don't need it. And what they don't realize is so many of those have security patches in them. And guess what happens when when the glitch is found? It's fixed, and then it's updated, and then they publish what the weakness is. So they've just told the entire cyber criminal community there's a weak spot in this older version of the operating system or the software. And when people don't update it, you've got hackers out there looking for somebody like you that hasn't updated it. And so you're just a sitting duck, and you've done that. And this is the one thing, in having spoken to hackers, they kind of feel that anybody who doesn't protect themselves is asking for it. I mean, they really put the blame on you, because you're like, it'd be like somebody coming in and stealing your wallet on your counter and saying, well, you left your door wide open. What did you expect? They look at it that way online. And there's a part of me that agrees with them from this perspective, which is you don't expect a big company or the government to come in and lock your doors and windows at night. But you're kind of using that same logic and behavior in expecting somebody else to come in and lock your own digital devices So I think of it this way: you've got your digital castle. Every man and woman has a castle. In your home is your castle, and now you've got a digital home, and your accounts are your windows. So you might close your windows and lock your windows in your house, but you're not doing it online. You might secure your doors. You don't go off to work, with your front door and back door wide open, but you're probably doing that with your devices. Your devices, those are your gates in your castle. And most importantly, your drawbridge, which is your network. And whether that's your home network, I can't tell you how many people I talk to who still have the password 1111 that's on the sticker underneath their router. They haven't changed their Wi-Fi password in forever. And that's kind of what I got into. I had a secured network, but I hadn't changed my password in a long time. And then they got into a phone, so they definitely could do it. So I couldn't see anything off. People put all their smart devices, their TVs and their refrigerators on the same network at home that they have all of their financial retirement accounts information on and everything. They don't bifurcate and create a guest net, or if they have a guest network, they don't put the other devices on it. There's basic hygiene, and there's really only 7 steps you need to do, but that's all part of your network is your drawbridge. And, medieval times, we've got hordes coming in and you're leaving your drawbridge down. So I'm just saying, raise your drawbridge, everybody. You're going to be so much thicker. So you can do things that are going to make you in the rarefied list of people. And you can really protect yourself, especially now that I see it as an AI cybercrime tsunami. And if you are going to be the low-hanging fruit if you do not do these things. So it's really, really critical that you take care of yourself online the same way you take care of yourself.
Yeah, and also I'd also add to the advice, don't advertise yourself online. You might be an investor in crypto. Don't tell all the cyber criminals in the world that you're a big investor in crypto. Bad idea. You just become a bigger target. So now let's shift to our last section, which is the lightning round, where I mention things
Sure.
and ask if you think they're underrated or overrated. So, of course,
I know. I love listening to this on your podcast. So now I get, and I have and just for everybody listening at home, right. I have no idea what.
Well, we know where you live, so we've got to ask you, San Francisco Giants chances this year, underrated or overrated?
Well, I'm a Giants fan, but I have to say overrated.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Sorry, guys.
My cousin used to work there. She did all the real estate stuff.
I was with them at for their 4 big wins, and everything is awesome. But right now we'll wait and see. But I'm holding out hope.
Exactly.
I hope I'm wrong.
AI personal assistants, underrated or overrated?
I think, I'm so in the thick of it in Silicon Valley. I don't have a clear enough view of how it's viewed in the regular world, to be honest. But I'm going to say, I think they're underrated because there's so many people just using them as thinking of it all as Google search and not really seeing all that they could do. And I use AI as an assistant, and it's incredible. It's life-changing, so positive. So I think I think
they're getting better every day too.
Yes.
The importance of private AI, underrated or overrated?
Underrated.
Going to an event at the Moscone Center, or Moscone, however you pronounce that. Moscone. Underrated or overrated?
Underrated, because every time I've been going there for years, and it's always
they do a great job.
And there's always more. You always get more out of those events than you think you're going to get. And I hear that not from other people.
In-N-Out burgers, underrated or overrated?
Oh, it's underrated. It's fresh, never frozen, locally sourced, doing good for the world and the planet. And I think
surfing as a hobby, underrated or overrated?
Oh, well, I used to surf. I don't take as much time now that I've been a surfer. going to say underrated because I think a lot of people don't try it. It's kind of like golf. It's something you really have to do a lot to get good at. And it takes time to do that and work it into a schedule. So I don't think enough people, I think too many people think of it as, like they see the competitions, but they don't just try it out for their own enjoyment or even paddleboarding or something. And it's very zen. It's very meditative. It can really help you stay calm in this crazy AI world.
Yeah. How about people's ability to spot phishing emails? Underrated or overrated?
Overrated.
Absolutely.
Overrated. I show people every day. I show CEOs things.
They have no idea.
They think they're good. And well, you know why? Because people correlate cybercrime or they correlate being a victim of cybercrime with IQ, and it has nothing to do with that. They think, oh, I'm smart enough. It can't happen to me. Yeah. That does people all the time. And other people will catch it. So definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
How about authenticator, the token apps as opposed to getting a text message or something like that? So authenticator apps, underrated or overrated?
And underrated because not enough people are using them. And that's from perception that they're not worth it. And they are worth it.
Yeah, totally agree.
100. So
way better than just getting a text, right? Because text is fine, but your phone could be cloned, and
we can interrupt your SIM. Yeah, we can take over your SIM card. So
and then last but not least, the TV show Ted Lasso, underrated or overrated?
Even as much as it's been, I'd have to say underrated. That show, I've watched it. I don't go back and watch a lot of things a second or third time. And I grew up in Hollywood in the show business family. So I also am watching for continuity and production value and all, not just for the movie, but I have to say I'm a big Ted Lasso fan. So all I can add one word, believe. Yes. And if you haven't seen Ted Lasso, you don't know what I mean.
Yeah. You got to watch it if you haven't seen it. Anyway, Jocelyn, this has been awesome. This has been Jocelyn King, our special guest, Queen of Online Safety, top 10 woman in cyber, founder and CEO of Smarter Online. Jocelyn, tell people where they can find out more about Smarter Online Safety.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Alec. If you come to smarteronlinesafety.com and you sign up, you'll get a weekly short newsletter that just gives you some updates on what's happening in the world of cybercrime and cybersecurity, and a tip in plain English to keep you safe. And you'll also get a link to my podcast if you want to watch that. It's a drive time or treadmill workout time podcast, so you can get caught up. And if you sign up, you'll also hear about my forthcoming book, and we have a lot of resources.
Awesome. Jocelyn, thanks for coming on the show. This has been fun.
Thank you, Alec. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having the show. It's so needed.
Thank you.
Appreciate everything you do.
You are listening to the AI Risk Reward Podcast with your host, Alec Crawford. You can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts, for example, Apple Podcasts. Production and sound engineering by Troutman Street Audio. You can find them on LinkedIn. Please like, subscribe, and comment.